Hey everyone, welcome back to Infinite Podcast. I'm your host Jones, and with me is the man who could start a fire in a rainstorm, Simon. All right, today we're diving into modern off-grid living. It's not just cabins in the woods anymore, right? We've got tech making self-sufficiency more connected than ever. Ever met someone who's actually pulled it off, Simon?
Oh, I knew a guy who was so off-grid, he thought Wi-Fi was a government conspiracy to organize garden gnomes. Dude powered his toaster with static electricity from petting his cats. True story.
Heh, that's one way to do it. But seriously, off-grid today is like smart homes with solar panels, right? You've got folks harvesting rainwater and using satellite internet to stay connected while growing their own grub. It's high-tech hermit life. They're not dropping off the map, just choosing which parts they want to keep.
Imagine living like that, huh? Hey Siri, water my turnips. While they're at it, these off-grid gurus could teach Siri to forage for wild mushrooms. She drops one Lowell in the forest, and you've got a laughing owl meme for days.
That's hilarious, man. But for real, tech does make going off-grid sound way more doable. Imagine being away from all the noise, yet still asking a smart assistant to manage your eco-friendly gadgets. Mind-blowing. And with drones delivering packages, you're not even missing out on your online shopping fix. We're redefining what independence really means nowadays.
Man, independence today is just choosing which app controls your life. Next thing you know, there's going to be an app for making friends with squirrels. Squirrel Friend. You got an argument? Swipe right for a nutty buddy to back you up.
I get your point. But I don't know, man, it's easy to poke fun at tech, but it bridges the gap between isolation and community, you know? And about that app, Squirrel Friend or whatever, sounds nuts, haha. But seriously, choosing apps doesn't mean we're not independent. It's just selecting our tools. Like, independence is about making those choices, not ditching all modern comforts, right?
Yeah, but isn't it like choosing your poison? You say bridge the gap with community, but aren't we kind of losing touch with real human moments? Like, remember when getting lost meant actually asking people for directions instead of just a quick chat with your phone? I feel like independence is messy human interaction, not just a tech-curated existence, you know?
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. We do tend to lean on technology as a crutch. But here's the thing. Going off-grid doesn't mean giving up connections or turning into a hermit. It's finding balance, right? Like choosing tech that helps us live sustainably without being totally dependent on it. The key is using it to enhance those messy human moments, not replace them. Independence isn't just about disconnecting from society. It's more like reshaping how we interact with everything around us.
Totally. But do you think like choosing all that tech, are we kind of maybe missing the point of going off-grid? Or is this, the new school of thought where we just redefine what being connected means while living sustainably? What's your take, Joe?
Yeah, Simon, it's a solid debate. But check this, right? Going off-grid traditionally meant ditching society and its comforts for greater self-reliance. Now with solar tech, composting toilets, rainwater harvesting systems, and even wind turbines becoming more efficient and affordable, people are creating these self-sustaining ecosystems that don't cut them off from the world. And consider this, man, information sharing. Before, going off-grid might have meant you lacked access to knowledge. But now, with tech, you can be in the middle of nowhere and still know what's happening globally, which was unthinkable before. Plus, there's an environmental side. Green technologies let us reduce our carbon footprint significantly. So it really is redefining independence. You're not just surviving, you're thriving sustainably without being tethered to traditional infrastructure. It's like crafting a new narrative of what autonomy can look like today.
Yeah, Joe, that's all well and good. But let me play devil's advocate here. Like, isn't this kind of cherry picking which parts of society we want? Is that truly independent? Or are we just like kidding ourselves by thinking we're free while still being on the tech leash? And what about learning from just living, you know? Sure, we got a global knowledge thing going on, but doesn't that take away from the whole figuring things out on your own vibe off-grid living used to have? It's a brain scratcher for sure.
Look, I get what you're saying, Simon. It's like we're picking a la carte from society's menu, right? But here's the thing, being off grid was never about going back to the Stone Age. It's always been about autonomy and self reliance, yeah? And for sure, you lose some of that raw trial and error learning by using tech as a crutch. But hey, isn't independence also about the freedom to choose, even if it's choosing to stay a bit on the grid? So yeah, you could argue it's not black and white. There's definitely gray areas. But that's the beauty of it, man. You make it your own. You define your independence, whether that's with high-tech gizmos or just kicking it old school with a compass and a map.
Yeah. So diving deeper into that, I guess my point is independence is super personal. What's it really mean? For some folks, it's cutting ties with all the city buzz and creating a little piece of heaven where the only Twitter around is like actual birds tweeting. But then you've got others who are all in for reducing their footprint on this rock we're spinning on, but aren't quite ready to give up Netflix just yet. So they find this sweet spot, sort of like having your cake and eating it too, without, well, ruining the party for future generations. And one thing really important here, autonomous living ain't just about being solo. It's building communities, sharing knowledge, helping each other out, a different kind of social network. But yeah, it's tricky, man. Make sense?
Ah, spot on, Simon. Independence, it's super personal, man. Like one guy's off-grid dream could be another's nightmare, right? And yeah, cutting ties with city life, that sounds cool for some. But then there are those who can't skip a Sunday night binge watch session. And isn't it about choice at the end of the day? And about communities? That's gold. It's not just going solo, but creating networks where you can share, learn, and support each other. Independence might start with self-reliance, but community resilience, that's next level. It's tricky because it's shifting. What we thought independence was 20 years ago ain't what it is today. What do you think, Simon? Is independence still the right word, or are we talking about something else now?
I think the word independence is kind of like evolving with us, right? It's not so black and white, like wearing a badge that says, hey, I can do it all on my own. Nah, it's more nuanced now. Maybe what we're really talking about here isn't independence so much as interdependence. You get me? Like, sure, we're doing our own thing, but we're still connected to others. We aren't living in bubbles, even though some people might want to. Eh? We're choosing how we connect, who we rely on, and what tools we use. So yeah, it's not just about going off-grid or even sustainability alone. It's about like redefining our reliance on society and maybe making it more meaningful. Does that hit home, or am I off in the weeds here, Joe?
Nah, you're onto something big. It's like independence got an upgrade, Interdependence 2.0. We're writing the software as we go along. Now that's a rabbit hole worth exploring.
Thinking about off-grid living really does make you wonder about the mindset it takes, doesn't it? Like, choosing that kind of solitude, it's got to do some interesting things to your headspace.
Uh, totally. Deciding to live off grid, it requires a strong mental game, you know? You've got to be comfortable with your own company and like have that inner steel to handle the silence, which can get loud, if you know what I'm saying. And there's resilience, handling whatever Mother Nature throws at you without running back to the city. But flip the script. Urban living ain't exactly a walk in the park for our mental well-being either. It's like stimulation overload, the noise, the lights, always being on. Some might say it frays the edges of your mind, whereas going off grid might just stitch it back together in a way. So yeah, you gotta have this certain mental mettle to choose isolation, or should we say selected solitude. Because even when living isolated, people create community in new ways, balancing their need for quiet with social interaction. Make sense?
Yeah. So, like I was saying, mental toughness in isolation is huge. It's about being at peace with fewer distractions and turning inward for entertainment instead of outward, right? But it isn't just about getting away from it all. There's a deeper psychological impact. Living off grid can lead to self discovery, making you confront the creature comforts you thought were necessities. City life, though, with its sensory smorgasbord, can sometimes push us to the brink of analysis paralysis, too many choices, too much noise. Choosing the quiet might look like running away, but it's often more like running towards something, towards understanding your own mind. Plus, you learn that a community isn't a place, it's the people you choose to connect with, however far apart you are. Adds up, right?
Definitely adds up. Research backs this up too. Turns out prolonged exposure to urban environments can increase stress and anxiety levels, the so-called urban stress effect. There's even data showing higher rates of mental health issues in cities compared to rural areas. On the flip side, isolation like off-grid living often forces people into mindfulness and self-reflection. This can lead to lower stress levels. There's peace in simplicity. Studies actually show nature's positive effects on our brains, reducing activity in areas linked to mental illness. And about learning in isolation, information retention can improve when distractions are limited. Then there's community dynamics. Small-scale intentional communities often see stronger bonds and support networks forming. We're talking genuine connection without the superficial chit-chat. That's powerful stuff for mental health. Also, let's not forget the impact on cognitive skills. Problem solving, adaptability, and creative thinking get a workout with off-grid challenges. All said, mentally, going off-grid is like swapping life on a hamster wheel for a trek in vast open spaces. The view's different, the air's fresher, and the silence speaks volumes.
Totally. But imagine the zombie apocalypse hits right now. Off-gridders would be like, been prepping for this my whole life, while city folks are running around like headless chickens.
Ha! You're not wrong. It's like off-gridders have been playing life on hard mode, and suddenly it's the rest of us trying to catch up. They've got survival in the bag, while city slickers, like us, are Googling how to start a fire without matches. Goes to show, man, that mental prep and self-reliance, they come in handy when things go sideways or when zombies come knocking.
Yeah, but hold up. Playing devil's advocate here. Isn't there a risk of going too far into isolation? Like becoming a hermit in the woods, super romantic in books, but reality's a whole different enchilada. Our noggins are hardwired for contact, and too much alone time can lead to a serious case of the brain cobwebs. I'm not knocking off-grid life. It has its perks, mentally speaking, but you gotta watch out that self-reliance doesn't turn into self-isolation. When the only convo you've had is with a squirrel, it might be time to pop back to civilization for a hot sec. Balance. You dig?
Oh, I dig. And that's a solid point, Simon. There's plenty of research out there supporting the idea that social isolation can seriously mess with your head. Like studies have shown that prolonged social isolation can lead to increased risk of depression, cognitive decline, and even cardiovascular issues because of the stress it can cause. There's a reason solitary confinement is the harshest punishment in prison. Conversely, human connections, like those you find building community off-grid or in tight-knit neighborhoods, can help ward off these risks. Our brains are nearly social organs, psyched about interaction and benefiting from cooperation and shared knowledge. Loneliness ain't just an unpleasant feeling, it can harm our mental and physical well-being just as much as chronic diseases can. So yeah, while self-reliance trains you in resilience and mindfulness, which is great for mental health, total hermit mode skips on essential psychological needs like love, belonging, and esteem. That squirrel convo might be cute, but humans need more diverse chatter for their sanity's sake. Fixing a barn together beats talking philosophy with woodland critters any day in terms of mental health boosts. Balance, the magic word.
Definitely, Joe. Social critters we are. Makes you wonder, how many folks choosing that isolated life have like a game plan for weaving in the all-important human contact? Like how do they strike that balance between solitude and social needs? Do they schedule weekly town visits or, I don't know, use tech to keep connected? What's their secret sauce for keeping the brain happy in the quiet wild?
You've got a point there. The balance game is no joke. So yeah, folks off the grid, they do have strategies. Like some might schedule civilization days to stock up and socialize. Others use tech, right, to stay in touch. Satellite internet, texting, they're lifelines for staying connected. And then there are community events, potlucks, barn raising, stuff where everyone comes out of the woodwork. But beyond what's scheduled, it's about psychology, right? Like implementing routines that promote well-being, even in isolation. Keeping oneself engaged with hobbies, projects, exercise, that sort of thing. And let's not forget emotional resilience. Life off the beaten track can throw curveballs. Mental strength isn't just for emergencies, it's for the daily grind too. When solitude starts to chafe, having that secret sauce, be it routines, contacts, or beliefs, it helps to keep folks grounded. Breathing through the quiet moments, finding joy in the little things, care for a garden, companionship of animals, and not viewing aloneness as loneliness, but as an opportunity. That's key to thriving solo without getting caught up in those brain cobwebs you mentioned.
Plus, let's be real. If your neighbor's a bear, you've got some wild stories for those civilization days. Nothing spices up small talk like explaining how you had to outsmart Yogi to get your picnic basket back.
Ha! For sure. Anything involving a bear is an instant classic. Speaking of animals, one thing they've got sorted is energy efficiency, right? They're like the pros of the natural world. Gets you thinking about our own attempts at being energy efficient and all that. Switching to self-generated power like solar or wind, it's got its own set of, let's call them teachable moments. Ever heard about the guy who installed a DIY solar panel but pointed it towards the neighbor's shiny window instead of the sun? He couldn't figure out why his batteries were dead by lunchtime. Or how about those tiny hiccups when someone hooks up the wind turbine backwards? Instead of generating power, you're practically making an electric fan on a stick. Gotta love the learning curve in taking control of your own energy. It ain't always smooth sailing, but hey, that's half the fun. Listeners, hit us with your best off-grid energy mishap stories. We all need a good laugh, don't we?
Oh man, talking about power mishaps. This one time, I tried to get all techie with a solar cooker. Simple enough, right? Just point it at the sun and boom, hot meal. Except I forgot one small detail, securing the thing. A gust of wind later, and my lunch is doing somersaults across the yard. It's like Mother Nature went, "You call that a sunny side up? Watch this." And let me tell you, trying to salvage your dignity while chasing your chicken dinner down the street? Not my brightest moment.
Man, that's classic. It really is those little things like securing your gear. We're all for green energy till it's flipping burgers by itself, right? I bet half the challenge with self-generated power is gravity and weather teaming up against you. Take one buddy of mine, right? Puts together this whole rainwater collection system to be efficient. Tries to hook it up to his tiny hydropower turbine, going full eco-warrior on us. Well, a storm hits, the tank overflows, and the next thing you know, he's got a mini Niagara Falls cascading off his roof. There was enough water running down to power a small town, but not quite how he planned it. So, yeah, while we're trying to win the energy game, sometimes we forget the playbook, simple stuff like physics. But live and learn, as they say.
Oh, for sure. Harnessing the elements sounds epic till they're whooshing your plans away like Mary Poppins. There's a fine line between living off the grid and starring in your own slapstick nature show.
Ha! Yeah, man. Messing with nature is like stepping into the ring thinking you've got the upper hand. Next thing you know, you're on your back, looking up at the lights, wondering what happened. Mother Nature's the undefeated champ. You've just got to roll with the punches and laugh it off. Sometimes she hands you lemons, sometimes she whips them at your head at 100 miles per hour, right?
Absolutely, Joe. And when Mother Nature throws those 100 miles per hour lemons, it's like the hope is you've got a battery bank to catch them, or at least a backup plan. Because with green energy, there are no do-overs, just learning opportunities. But come on, if anyone says they got their off-grid power set up right on the first try, I'm calling their bluff. It's comedy gold waiting to happen. The second you flip that switch, and nothing. Zip, zilch. Listeners got to have some tales about times the wind turbine turned into a roadside attraction for being a bird perch instead of a power source. Or maybe someone's solar-powered security light that was so dim, burglars needed a flashlight to see the house. Share your stories. We need a good chuckle.
Yeah, Simon. Flipping the switch and getting squat, been there. Reminds me of this one time I rigged up a solar kit for my shed, right? I'm all proud, thinking I'm going to be like the king of efficiency. I hit the switch and nothing but crickets. Had wired it up while listening to a ball game and completely missed a connection. You could say I dropped the ball on that one. But let's pivot here. Imagine tomorrow's homesteaders. Their tech's got to be smarter, right? Like picture drones tending crops or automated systems that don't just collect rainwater but predict the weather. Imagine the mishaps then. A delivery drone planting tomatoes in your flower bed, or a smart system watering your garden during a downpour because it sensed dry soil. That's not just maintaining a living, it's comedy hour with robots. Hey, they still won't have the perfect answer to Mother Nature's curveballs. But at least we'll get some laughs as we watch the tech try to keep up. Uh-huh.
Totally, Joe. As cool as all that tech sounds, there's bound to be a blooper reel. Robotics trying to outsmart nature? Should be a hoot. But what about our listeners? Y'all got any future tech mishap predictions or hilarious past fails to share? Let's hear them.
Oh, our listeners are bound to have some gems. A tech-bound future is just begging for classic facepalm moments. Speaking of the future, it's wild to think about how tomorrow's homesteaders might live. Like, with all these trends towards automation and smart everything, what does off-grid even look like? Beds that make themselves, maybe? But more seriously, you've got self-driving tractors, AI managing crop cycles, homes that power themselves intelligently. It's all moving to where you're living with the tech, not just using it. This could really redefine self-sufficiency, bringing Ivy League smarts to country living, only without the tuition fees or student loans. This whole shift, what does it mean for independence, man? Does it change our connection to the land when drones do the farming? And then there's the big E, ecology. Using tech to better align with ecological principles, that's powerful, right? Going green no longer means just composting. It's renewables managed by the hour to get the most out of every gust of wind or ray of sun. Just wraps up what we've been gabbing about today, doesn't it? Off-gridders aren't just pioneers now. They're the model for future living. Reducing footprints, using resources wisely, that's not backwoods anymore, it's cutting edge. And that's something to chew on as we keep pushing the envelope, huh, guys?
Yeah, pushing that envelope might look like sci-fi today, but tomorrow's kids will probably think we were living in the Stone Age. Self-sustaining homes that not only power themselves, but fix their own issues. Imagine your house diagnosing a leak and patching it up before you even know it's there. But does all this smart tech make us less self-reliant or just differently reliant? When you can check your crop's health from your phone, are we losing touch with the, hands-on experience, or just finding new ways to connect with our environment? And then what about independence? It's supposed to be at the heart of off-grid living, right? Yet if we're relying on tech developed who knows where, gotta wonder how independent we really are. It's a complex dish we're cooking here, kind of like balancing flavors. How much tech to blend in without losing the essence of simple, earthy living? And then the question, are we nurturing ecology or just getting better at manipulating it? Keeps you thinking, huh? I don't know. Feels like the deeper we dig into the future, the more we circle back to these roots. Roots that seem to whisper, don't forget where you came from, even as you zip off to where you're going.
Yeah, quick thought. What if we're actually coming full circle? Like our ancestors used every part of the buffalo, and now we've got tech aiming for that level of efficiency again. Makes you think, are we really evolving or just getting back to basics with fancier tools?
Oh, it's like we're taking a ride in a time machine with some shiny new rims. We've got all these gadgets doing what old school folks did by instinct, brain power, and pure sweat. Evolution or revolution? I'd say it's a remix.
Oh, Simon, you hit the nail on the head with that one. It's definitely a remix. I actually got a buddy who's living this mix right now. He's got his granddad's old farm, and it's crazy. Sitting right next to these sleek solar panels is this ancient tractor that looks like it should be in a museum. So he's tinkering one day with the tractor, trying to get it running, right? Then his smart irrigation system pings him about soil moisture levels or some such thing. And here's the kicker. He uses the same intuition that kept that tractor going for generations to finesse his modern tech setup. It's like watching someone play an acoustic guitar alongside a synth. It shouldn't fit, but somehow it makes perfect harmony. And there's value in that, seeing how resourcefulness never gets old, no matter the era, no matter the tools at hand. Makes me think. Maybe our understanding of progress needs to balance respect for the past with all these leaps forward, because it's not always about the shiniest tools, but how you put them to use, right?
Right. It's all about that mixtape of old school and future hits. Just takes one look at my buddy to see the future isn't just a skimming through an app for farm solutions, right? It's dirty hands still fiddling with wires, figuring things out. So yeah, progress ain't a straight line. It's this funky doodle where we loop around our heritage, sprinkling in new tech as glitter. Makes me think, where's the sense in having your head stuck in the clouds if your feet ain't planted in the mud? Despite all the flash of tomorrow's toys, there's soul in connecting with the past, like sticking to LP records instead of just streaming tunes. You get me? The harmony comes when the tractor hums alongside the drone buzz, not replacing, enhancing. Yeah, so here's weighing on tomorrow's homesteaders. You're going to need more than just Wi-Fi and warranties. You got to snap those selfies while sowing the seeds. It's living tradition, but upgrading the firmware now and then keeps you real in a world gone digital. What do y'all think, huh?
Absolutely, Simon. Like, who says you can't have a chicken coop that sends you text alerts? It's like having your eggs ping you when they're ready, farm to table with a tech twist.
Whoa, are you kidding me? That's wild. Like chickens texting now. Is that where we're at? I mean, think about it. Having your breakfast chat you up before it's even made? Dude, sign me up for that. It's like a personal wake-up call from your food. Hey, get out of bed. I'm freshly laid. Now, if only they could figure out a way to deliver the eggs straight to my frying pan, like a mini drone egg drop or something. The future's gonna be nuts.
For sure, Simon. We're standing on the edge of a whole new world here. Homesteading isn't just about going back to the land anymore. It's about bringing the future with you. And maybe while we're chuckling at chickens sending texts or drones dropping eggs, it opens up this question. How will all these innovations shape not just how we live, but how we interact with the essentials of life? Makes you wonder what self-sufficient will really mean for our kids, huh?
You know, Joe, talking about the future of homesteading and self-sufficiency, it's not just high-tech changes shaking things up. There's this shift to smaller living spaces, like tiny homes. It's like downsizing your life's backpack while still packing in all the essentials. Think about it. These tiny houses started as a blip on the radar, but now they're huge, or small, I guess, in the literal sense, but massive in popularity. Living minimally, there's beauty and simplicity in that. And the challenge, too. You've got to cut the excess, live with what you need, not drowned by wants. And boy, does that rattle the old consumer cage. What drives someone to say, yep, 200 square feet, that's all I need? It shifts your whole view on space, stuff, the whole shebang. Can you imagine trimming down like that?
Yeah, totally, Simon. Reminds me of when I took this cross-country road trip in what was basically a closet on wheels. People asked, how can you live like that? But it wasn't about the space, it was about the experience, man. Every morning, I'd wake up to a new view, mountains, plains, rivers, and inside, it's just me and the bare essentials. Kind of felt liberating, no extra stuff to worry about, just living. So it got me thinking, living small might not be about the size, it's about the uncluttering, yeah? Cutting the noise, focusing on what really brings value to your life. Can't just buy another bookshelf because there's no room for more books. You're forced to cherish the ones you have. It's like intimacy with your own life. Less, but richer. Stuff like that makes you pause, huh?
Challenge accepted, my man. I get the whole intimacy with your life bit, sure. But let's be real. The idea that less is more, that's tough to swallow when we're bombarded with ads for the next big thing. People ditching their spacious pads for a tiny home. It's gutsy. But here's the kicker. I bet half those minimalists used to have walk-in closets bigger than their new digs. So there's got to be something magnetic in that minimalist philosophy, pulling them away from the mainstream. Consumer madness. You mentioned living out of a closet on wheels, right? Maybe compact living rattles us because it exposes how much fluff we've piled up. We've built these lives crammed with stuff we don't need. And for what? Tiny homes yank off the blindfold, like bam! They make us confront our reality check. Do we own our things, or do our things own us? And woo, thinking about space differently. Inches matter, design gets cleverer. Every corner, hinge, and hook, it's all got intent behind it. Makes you appreciate open air too. Suddenly a backyard feels like a national park, huh? So yeah, this ain't just about smaller cabinets. It's kind of questioning the whole blueprint we've drawn up for successful living. And you know, this convo ain't done yet. What do y'all think, listeners? Could you swap your king-size life for a queen-size nook? Let's hear those thoughts.
Heh, tiny homes might just be the new McMansions for folks who measure success in moments, not square footage. It's a bold move, like trading in your SUV for a skateboard.
Heck, it's like we're all playing life's version of Tetris. With a tiny home, you're nailing that high score with fewer blocks. Makes you wonder if the real luxury is actually less space and more freedom, huh?
Yeah, Simon, it's funny you say that. It's kind of like this one time. I was over in Japan, right? And I visited these traditional houses called machiya. These places are like tiny by Western standards, but everything's got its place, super efficient. And there's this concept they have It's the value of the space between things, not just the things themselves. So I'm sitting there in this tea house, cramped by my usual standards, but feeling strangely at ease. It wasn't about fitting my life into a smaller box. It was about creating more room for thought, clarity, peace even. The story here isn't just the size, though. It's the quality of the life filling it up. Like every item and choice had intention behind it. Nothing's accidental. Even borrowed some of those ideas when I got back, looking at my own home, asking, do I need this or can I let in a little more ma? So whenever I hear about people going minimalist, it takes me back to that tea house. It's like they might be onto something with this whole less is more deal. And maybe we could all use a little more ma in our lives, don't you think?
Yeah, the Japanese truly have it dialed in with ma. There's real art to living without the clutter. Like, peace isn't just about more cushion in your square footage. Maybe the next wave of luxury is having just enough to invite more ma. Makes me want to know, listeners, could you find joy in the space between, or are you clinging to every inch of your lifestyle? What's ma mean for you?
Speaking of ma and space, it's not just about empty space. It's also about what you do with the space you've got. Like in a tiny home, right? Every square inch is prime real estate, so you've got to be clever. We're talking furniture that folds into the walls, stairs doubling as drawers, stuff right out of a Bond movie. There are homes out there turning space saving into an art form. Ever seen a bed disappear into the ceiling or a table that pops out of a shelf? It's wild. I met this guy once, lived in a place where his bookshelf spun around to reveal a workstation. Can you imagine working from a hidden laundromat? Because in these homes, that could be under your desk. Nowadays, living small can mean living smart. You adapt and get creative. Your dining room by day turns into the bedroom by night. I'm thinking having to transform your space daily, that adds a sort of ritual to life, doesn't it? Keeps things fresh, or at least keeps you on your toes. It begs the question, though, how does squeezing maximum use out of minimum space impact how we go about our day-to-day? Do these designs actually make life easier or more complicated? Twitchy if your Murphy bed's stuck, eh? Got any survival stories from downsizing wars, listeners? Let's dive in.
Yeah, all those gizmos and ingenious builds are neat, but you ever think they might just be a fancy way to sidestep the real issue? Like we're avoiding a clutter detox. We invent all these hidden compartments and transformer furniture pieces, but are we just tucking away the junk we should ditch? Don't get me wrong, multitasking tables are slick, and stairs with secrets are cool, total Narnia vibes. But honestly, Joe, doesn't that make for a house that's kinda, high maintenance? One busted hinge and your bed table closet combo is a no-go. I bet tiny house living's got this learning curve like a roller coaster. You gotta juggle bits and bobs before you hit that smooth ride. Do the space saving tricks actually save space or sanity? So, what's the verdict, folks? Is designing for dollhouse dimensions more magician's act or meaningful lifestyle change? How do you not lose it when your whole house is like one of those puzzle boxes? I'm itching to hear some tales from the tiny house trenches.
I mean, imagine the thrill of finding new storage in a place you've passed by every day. Suddenly, your walls holding more than just family photos. But then again, when does your house stop being a home and start becoming a life-sized puzzle?
Right? There's a fine line between living in a space and solving its daily riddles. It's like, welcome to my home, or should I say escape room?
Yeah, Simon, makes me think of this one time I was staying over at a buddy's place, and like he's full on embraced the tiny living thing. His coffee table, it would lift up to eye level, so you could use it as a standing desk, and hot dang, that was slick. But here's the kicker. He had this habit, right, of leaving his coffee cup on it. So every time he'd crank that table up, whoosh, his Java goes flying. We laughed about it, made some cracks about needing hazard pay just to have a cup of joe. But there was some real talk under those jokes, you know? Like, hey man, do these clever contraptions really, I don't know, simplify our lives, or are they just band-aids for a deeper issue? Not saying the innovations aren't downright genius, because they are, but they also sort of invite us to re-examine our habits, our stuff. When is it actually technology serving us, and when is it like us adapting to quirks of our own inventions? Yeah. So what's your take, listeners? Ever had gadgets that outsmarted you in your own home?
You hit it, man. Uh, Sometimes we're so caught up in being clever with our space that we forget to be smart about it, like with your pal and his coffee launching table. That's gotta leave a mark, right? It's almost as if we get carried away playing house with adult Legos instead of, like, actually living in them. Sure, they're cool as heck, but is the wow factor worth the trade-off when your gadgets have you tiptoeing around your own pad? And let's not even start on assembling this stuff. I mean, I once got a folding bookshelf. Seemed easy enough until I put it together backward. Ended up with a modern art piece instead of a shelf. I'm just saying, maybe we're tackling lack of space issues from the wrong angle. Perhaps it's not about fitting more into less, but considering why we have so much in the first place. So come on, folks, spill. Got any stories where space saving turned into an epic Tetris fail? Let's hear those battle scars.
I mean, you're not wrong. That thing with the bookshelf, I can totally picture that going down. Like, furniture assembly is, it's supposed to be this simple thing, right? But it ends up being almost comically complex. And like, let's talk about those folks dealing with the Tetris fails every day. Imagine being late for work because you can't find your socks since they're tucked away behind a fold-out ironing board that's, I don't know, jammed or something. It's definitely one way to keep life interesting, but man, I don't know. Maybe we're just complicating our lives with these space savers. Instead of making life simpler, we somehow manage to invent new ways to frustrate ourselves. I gotta breathe and ask, when did we decide that turning our homes into a Swiss Army knife was the solution? There's something hilarious about all this tech making us work harder, not smarter. Listeners, come on, you've got some stories here. Ever found yourself battling your own space-saving wizardry? Tell me it's not just me who thinks half the fun is wondering if today's the day my sofa decides to eat my phone again. Let's hear those, oops moments.
Yeah, consider this. Maybe our homes need a disclaimer. Warning, contents may shift during daily life. Who needs a gym when you're wrestling a wall bed at dawn?
Exactly. It's like every morning's a new episode of Survivor, the living room edition. Who needs coffee when you've got adrenaline, huh?
Man, you ever just stand in your tiny living room and the whole place feels like it's playing Jenga with your sanity? One false move and you're buried under an avalanche of foldable furniture. Hey Siri, find my socks, and while you're at it, send help.
Yeah, it's like we're in this constant dance with our own stuff. Totally. Everything's a trade-off. Space saving isn't just about cramming your life into compartments. It's about choosing what gets to stay and what's got to go. And that's big. But like, check it out. When you design these micro spaces, every decision counts, right? That fold-down desk or Murphy bed, they're cool, but they also force you to reconsider what's essential. You've got this daily reminder of what's actually important because there's simply no room for the extra fluff. And sure, it might feel like a game of Jenga sometimes, but maybe it's supposed to. Maybe it's about staying nimble, learning to adapt on the fly, skills that are pretty valuable outside the dollhouse too, I'd say. So folks, think about it. Next time you trip over that ottoman that doubles as storage, it's not just an obstacle. It's part of that intentional living where everything you own has a purpose, a story even. Makes you wonder, are we designing homes or are we really designing lifestyles here? Now there's some food for thought.
Absolutely, Joe. It's not just about saving space, it's a whole mindset shift. You gotta cherish every item you bump your shin on, because it made the cut for a reason. But hey, does living like we're in a dollhouse make us more mindful or just more bruised? Where's the line? Let's keep tossing that around.
Speaking of getting bruised in the daily tiny home tango, it's not all stubbed toes and search parties for lost remotes. Forget about a mindfulness retreat. Living in a shoebox is like having your own private stand-up show, 24/7. Simon, imagine if we had a skit called A Giant's First Night in a Tiny House. I mean, just picturing that dude trying to fit into a lofted bed or squeezing through a compact bathroom doorway, it's pure gold. And think about throwing a party. Hey folks, welcome. Feel free to hang your coat on, well, any wall you can reach without knocking over my kitchen/living room. It goes to show, man, small space living, it's got this built-in humor. If you don't laugh, you'll end up yelling at your foldable table for being a table. Life's funny like that, eh? So let's crack open this mini fridge of comedy. We're diving into the lighter side of tiny living. Share those laughs, people.
So there's this hilarious side to tiny living we've got to explore. Like imagine you're in one of those compact kitchens, right? You spin around too fast and voila, you've just prepped your meal, done the dishes, and cleaned the whole place. And dinners, they're like Tetris because you've got one cutting board that's also a plate that's kinda a table. It's multitasking at its finest, or most chaotic. Oh, and let's chat about personal space in a shoebox home. You get real cozy, real quick. Like if your place is the size of a hiccup, every guest becomes an instant roommate. Good luck finding where the party ends and the bedroom begins. In the end, Joe, it's all about embracing the zany bits of having less square footage than a parking spot. So folks, unload your own comical capers from compact quarters. I'm pumped to hear them.
Oh man, Simon. Living tiny means your life's a sitcom where the set never changes but the antics, non-stop. Share those stories, people. Let's laugh together.
Yeah, Joe, it's a real-life sitcom with the tiniest, quirkiest stage ever. Hey, I gotta ask, ever try changing your mind in a tiny house? There's like no room for that either. So, listeners, what's your funniest oops moment from living large in those teeny tiny spaces?
So for those just tuning in, we're cracking up over the comic relief that comes with tiny home living. It's like you're part of this hilarious play where every prop is multifunctional and personal space is, let's say, a flexible concept. We've been swapping stories about the magic of meal prep in micro kitchens, like how a quick twirl can have your chores done in seconds because everything's within arm's reach. I mean, efficiency at its finest, or madness, sort of depends on the day, right? And then there's the social side. Hosting parties in these compact spaces means getting creative. Every gathering's basically a group hug, so yeah, it's all in good fun here, exploring the lighter side of squeezing big dreams into small places. Keep sharing those laughs and mishaps, guys. It's what makes life big, no matter how small your house is.
Totally, man. So, this one time, I was at a buddy's tiny house, right? We decided to like throw this impromptu birthday bash. And you know how in those cooking shows everything is super organized? Mise en place, they call it. So there we are, trying to prep food on this cutting board. No joke, Joe, it doubled as the dining table. It was a circus. Like one friend was chopping veggies and another was setting up a cheese plate on his knee. And me, I'm stuck in the middle, passing ingredients like I'm on some reality TV assembly line. The best part, though, the absolute best, the cake. Dude, we had to store the birthday cake in the oven because where else? But then, someone forgets, preheats the oven for pizza. Yeah, you can guess the rest. We go to get the cake, and there's this melted mess with a wonky candle sticking out. It was kind of tragic, but hilarious. We were dying laughing. I mean, if that doesn't sum up tiny home parties, I don't know what does. Yeah, y'all got any funny tiny home party fails? Share away, and let's keep the good times rolling.
Man, that cake story is comedy gold. Tiny living sure gives baking a cake a whole new meaning. Folks, keep those stories coming. Your tiny home shindigs sound legendary. What's your best slice of tiny home humor? Keep it coming.
Oh, and don't get me started on compost toilets. Nothing says getting back to nature like turning your business into next year's tomatoes. Sustainability or mad science? You tell me.
Oh man, compost toilets. They're like the unsung heroes of off-grid living. It's this raw look at sustainability. You put back what you take out, and I mean that literally. It kind of makes you rethink the whole cycle of consumption, waste. It's a game changer.
You're right about that whole cycle thing. But it's not just the toilets making tiny living a game changer. Think bigger, like solar power, rainwater collection. It's high tech meeting low impact, right? And there's this cool balance too. It's you with your solar panels, but you're still charging your smartphone and streaming shows. Off grid doesn't mean off the gridiron, I guess. Plus, these tiny home villages. They're sprouting up like mushrooms after a rainstorm, creating micro communities that are all about sharing resources and fostering connections. Doesn't that kind of blur the line between going rogue and rooting down together? Where does independence actually end and community kick in when we're talking sustainable tiny living? Huh, Joe?
Yeah, exactly, Simon. Let's slow it down and dig into this off-grid tiny home living. Solar panels, rainwater collection, all that stuff. It's like the Swiss Army knife of houses, you know? For those just tuning in, we've been chatting about how tiny homes, they aren't just small, they're smart. With all these self-sufficient systems built in, owners are taking control over their footprint on the planet while still enjoying modern comforts. Yeah, like streaming the latest binge-worthy show. And let's not forget tiny home villages, a blend of lone wolf lifestyle meets tight-knit community. It gets you thinking. Going off-grid doesn't mean going it alone, right? You're independent in how you live, but deeply connected through shared values and swapping stories, or maybe a cup of sugar from next door. So listeners, weigh in. What's your take on striking that balance between solo sustainability and community spirit in the world of tiny living? Keep it light, keep it green, and give us the dirt.
Wait, so you're telling me these tiny homes come with solar panels and stuff? That's nuts. I mean, you basically have everything you need to keep the lights on, your belly full, because let's be real, cooking's important, and all without leaving a mark. Kind of amazing. And who would have thought rainwater collection? Like it's even a thing, from sky to shower. Honestly, Joe, we're talking about Legos for grown-ups here, but, with nature. But hey, this village vibe, that's where it hits home for me. It's like folks doing their own thing off-grid, but also there's Susan next door borrowing basil. So independence with a sprinkle of community, it's sweet. Kind of makes you wonder if we're not just creating neighborhoods, but reinventing how we coexist sustainably too. Deep stuff. How do you outdo that, huh?
Absolutely. With tiny homes, we're not just downsizing our space, we're upsizing our ingenuity. Rethinking neighborhoods, huh? It's like building a modern-day tribe, sleek, sustainable, and socially savvy. What's next? Eco-friendly block parties where everyone's DJing with solar-powered turntables? The future of living could get a whole lot funkier.
Yeah. And think about it, Joe. If everyone's rocking solar turntables at these block parties, we're basically throwing raves without footprints. Like you can groove out until the sun comes up, literally, because that's your power source. But on the flip side, living off grid, it pushes you, man, makes you ask tough questions. Like, how much tech do we really need to be happy or to, get by? And if we're all self sufficient, are we kind of cutting the cord on needing each other? But then again, when you look closer, there's this radical independence that's, well, totally linked to cooperation. It's paradoxical and pretty darn cool. You're in charge of your life, still marching to the beat of your drum, but also tuning into the community playlist, if that makes sense. How wild is that? We're redefining the rules here. Living tiny but dreaming huge, thinking global while staying local. Listeners, what's your take on spinning this off-grid tale into a full-blown movement, huh? Could this be the new normal, the next big, or should I say, small thing in town?
What's wild is, with all this tech, we're living like high-tech hermits, connected but self-reliant. This could be the blueprint for a new society.
Uh, Wait a sec. High-tech hermits? That's sort of profound, man. Like, we've got all this tech at our fingertips, and we're using it to step back way back from traditional ways of living. It's like carving out a new path that looks old school but is totally cutting edge. I gotta say, the blueprint for a new society bit, that's intense. But you're onto something, Joe. Imagine a world where everyone's plugging into the sun and like sharing their extra power with neighbors, or composting leftovers instead of tossing them out. We're really flipping the script on how things have been done. And I can't help but wonder, like, does this off-grid life make us feel more in tune with the earth? Or maybe it ends up showing us just how much we've lost touch with nature, Blows my mind that we're even talking about this as a possible future. Communities are evolving, and we might just be witnessing the front line of a whole new way of doing life, one tiny home at a time. Wild stuff, man. What do you folks think? Is this idea bonkers, or is it just so crazy it might work?
Completely bonkers, Simon. Bonkers in the best way. We're on the frontier of a lifestyle revolution, powering up life with a ray of sun and a splash of rainwater. The question isn't if this works, it's are we bold enough to try? Keep it coming, folks.
Yeah, Joe, it's all about taking that leap, right? And here's the thing. It's not even just about being bold. There's practical stuff we gotta nail down too. Like when you're living off-grid in a tiny home, there's planning involved. You need rain when it's dry, sun when it's cloudy. Nature's fickle like that. And what happens when your tech goes kaput? The whole operation could turn into an eco-friendly episode of Survivor. So resilience, that's key. We gotta be gadget gurus and Mother Nature's BFFs all rolled into one. See, independence means you troubleshoot your own solar panel snafus. I mean, talk about DIY on steroids, am I right? Man, it's more than lifestyle changes. It's mindset changes. Are we ready to be power plants on two legs, storing sunshine in our backyards, wrangling with compost worms? Because that's the extra mile we're talking about. It's fierce, it's fresh, and frankly, it's the future staring us down. Makes you think, if we can do this, what else are we capable of, huh? Keep those thoughts coming.
And imagine, maybe one day we'll host a podcast episode from an off-grid podcastle, huh? Now that'd be a story to tell.
Yeah, Joe, that would be, pretty epic. Broadcasting live from a tiny fortress of solitude, podcast style. So if we're dreaming up podcastles, you think they'd come with, drawbridges and moats, but like eco-friendly, maybe stocked with some rainwater fish or something. But okay, here's a brain buster for you. What kind of stories do you think we'd tell from our off-grid podcastle, huh? Like tales of solar-powered shenanigans or wind turbine woes. What's tickling your fancy, dude?
Oh, stories for days, Simon. We'd have a never-ending supply of off-grid escapades. Maybe we'd throw in a couple of close encounters with wildlife. Bambi meets solar panel. Who knows? As for our listeners, what'd you bring to the podcastle table? Keep those tiny house tales coming. We're all ears over here.
Ha, and speaking of all ears, I mean, we need two things for our podcastle, right? Solid walls and solid Wi-Fi. Just think about those digital drifters out there turning every spot with a signal into their office. Man, these folks are literally chasing Wi-Fi around the globe. It's a whole new breed of work culture that's popped up, Joe. A crazy mashup of wanderlust and work ethics. Countries are starting to get hip to this trend, setting up hotspots everywhere. Cafes, parks, you name it, even some places you'd never expect, like remote beaches or mountain huts, are getting wired up. Is this the ultimate freedom or just a new way to stay chained to the job? What's your angle on this nomad life, Joe?
Whoa, digital nomads, huh? Man, that's some Jetsons level work life we got going. Countries decking out every nook and cranny with Wi-Fi so folks can punch in from like anywhere. Beaches, mountains. Insane. It's freedom with a catch, right? You're free to roam, but still sort of leashed by the need for a signal. Gotta wonder though, are we making the world our office, or is the office taking over the world? What do you guys think? Is this nomadic lifestyle the dream, or just digital shackles in disguise?
So yeah, it's like the line between work and life is getting real blurry for these digital nomads. And you've got to ask, are we romanticizing this idea of logging in from a hammock somewhere? I mean, sure, changing your office view whenever sounds cool, but like imagine troubleshooting a Wi-Fi crisis when there's a language barrier. That'd be a headache, huh? Plus, let's not gloss over the fact that not every country's ready for this tech tide. How does that shape where nomads can actually go? It's like, hey, I'd love to trek through the Amazon, but no signal, no deal. So while we're all dreamy-eyed about sipping coconuts during conference calls, like we also got to stay grounded. The world's not one big hotspot yet, and there's this ever-present quest for the next Wi-Fi wonderland. Still, it's a total game changer for how we do work, like packed and ready to jet at a moment's notice. But I don't know, Joe. Got any thoughts on if we're really built for this kind of life, or is it just for the few daring souls among us?
Yeah, romanticizing the hammock life is one thing, but let's be real. Juggling jet lag with deadlines, it's not for the faint of heart. It takes a special kind of hustle to merge the laptop lifestyle with actual living. It's all about balance, right? Is the Wi-Fi chase redefining work, or just adding extra miles?
Yeah, Joe. Balance is the magic word here. Because, like, on the one hand, you've got this incredible chance to see the world while drawing a paycheck. But then there's the other side. Like, dealing with time zones, that's no joke. You're in Bali one minute and Barcelona the next. Your body clock gets whacked out. And don't even get me started on hunting down a quiet corner to take calls in a bustling city or finding an outlet when your battery's dying. Man, it could get messy. Plus, we've got to think about local economies too, right? These digital nomads, they're popping into these communities kind of like modern-day Bedouins with laptops, and it changes things. There's both opportunity and pressure on places to beef up their tech game. So this whole Wi-Fi chase, it isn't just redefining work, it's reshaping cities and like how folks relate to each other. Work's no longer a place you go, but something you carry in your backpack, along with an extra charger, hopefully. It's the ultimate test of, can you hear me now? But let's be real, despite the challenges, this life's tempting as heck. Just thinking about it makes you want to grab a passport and a power bank, right?
Totally makes you want to embrace the chaos. Just dive in and figure it out, gadget bag and all. I mean, seriously, who hasn't daydreamed about closing deals with sand between their toes? Life's an adventure or nothing at all, right?
Oh, absolutely. Like, who doesn't want to seal the deal while working on their tan? But it's not all sunshine and sandy laptops. There's the chaos you mentioned. You've got to be kind of a wizard, right? Conjuring up internet from thin air and grappling with data roaming that costs more than your rent. This lifestyle, it's a hackathon meets backpack around the world. But yeah, life's the adventure we sign up for. Though, gotta say, not everyone's jazzed about living in a suitcase, even with beachside perks. The question we're poking here is, like, does the laptop lifestyle truly match the hype, or are these digital nomads just trying to outpace burnout on scooters? And what about relationships, huh? How do you keep those from going on airplane mode when you're hopping time zones? It's a wild ride, my friend, a digital roller coaster worth every drop in connection. So listeners, are you ready to join the ranks of Wi-Fi warriors, or is a stable signal and steady routine more your jam? Let us know.
Wi-Fi warriors aside, what happens when they stumble upon the digital Bermuda Triangle, places with zero connectivity? Do they adapt or just crack open a beer and wait for Google Maps to reload?
Heh, so, this one time, I got stuck in a spot like that, this cozy little mountain town. No Wi Fi anywhere, and my phone was just paperweight at that point. So, okay, I'm there for work, but also, coincidence, there's this craft beer festival going on. And I'm like, all right, we're unplugged, no help for it. So I crack open this local brew. It's pretty good. And while I'm waiting for the internet gods to bless me, I start chatting with folks around. This guy, he's got stories about every trail, every peak in those mountains. It hits me, right? We're all chasing connection, but sometimes it's not digital. It's right there, in front of you, you know? Anyway, 4 hours later, I find a signal, get my stuff done. But the best part of that day wasn't the work. It was the unexpected off-grid hours. Taught me something valuable about like these digital drifters. When tech fails, it's not the end. It's just a different adventure. Sometimes a cold beer and good company is all the connection you need. What do you think? Should we be more open to those analog moments?
For sure, Simon. Maybe the digital detox is the unsung hero here. Tune in for those unexpected human connections when the grid goes dark. That's worth a podcast episode on its own, don't you think?
Oh, totally, Joe. But here's a twist for you. What if going off-grid wasn't just by chance, but on purpose? Like a scheduled detox from all the buzzing and beeping. I mean, if we're cranking out episodes from our podcastle one day, why not throw in a dark week where we go full hermit mode? No screens, just mics and some 100% real talk? Could be wild, right? We'd push those boundaries, challenge this always-on culture. Maybe inspire folks to untether themselves. Not forever, just long enough to remember what silence sounds like. And when they dive back into the data stream, they've got fresh tales for us. Imagine that, an episode fueled by everything but pixels. You think listeners would dig it, or is this too out there, even for our adventurous bunch?
Yeah, I get it. A dark week could be a game changer or like a step too far for some. But hey, aren't we all about pushing the envelope? Listeners might surprise us and embrace the break. A podcast unplugged. It's authentic, it's raw. Isn't that kind of what we're starved for in a digitally saturated world? Taking a breather doesn't mean losing touch. It's hitting refresh. So let's flip the script and give our audience something they didn't know they needed. An off-grid episode screams, "We dare you to disconnect," right? Could open up a whole new realm of stories. I say we bank on the daring. I bet our listeners are up for the challenge.
Totally with you, Joe. It's like stripping back to basics can bring us some clue on what's truly key in this hyper-connected life. Maybe that raw, unplugged vibe is just the reboot we need, with or without Wi-Fi. So, for all you digital drifters out there, we're wondering, where does this journey take us next? Can living on and offline weave together in a way that's, chill and fulfilling? Let's keep this convo alive and see where this Wi-Fi wave rides out. What's your next move, Globetrotters? Stay tuned to find out more.
Continuing on that note, let's talk about the offbeat places where nomads hook into the matrix. I heard about a mountaintop shrine in Japan with cracking Wi-Fi, monks meditating steps away from some dude updating his cloud storage. Talk about unexpected spots, huh? Like, does stumbling upon internet in these remote locales enhance the journey, or does it yank us back to reality too soon?
Yeah, Joe, that's pretty out there, right? I mean, I once found this dive bar in the sticks with Wi-Fi stronger than their whiskey. Mind-blowing. You're sipping on a drink and bam, you're also video calling from nowhere. It's weird though, like how different cultures see our need to always be online. Some places embrace it, others kind of side-eye your phone addiction. So, does having internet everywhere make travel better or just distract from the vibe of the place? What's your take? Should we log off more when abroad, or is that connection part of the journey now?
Well, staying on topic here, I read about this cave in New Zealand, like one of those glowworm grottos. It's all otherworldly and serene. And then there's a sign, free Wi-Fi. Kind of clashes with Mother Nature's mood lighting, doesn't it? This urge to be online. It's cross-cultural now, showing up in spots where you'd least expect it, like ancient ruins or remote islands. Is Wi-Fi turning sacred spaces into just another spot to snap and send selfies? So, yeah. Does it enrich the experience, or could it maybe pull us away from soaking in the place itself? Personally, I reckon balance is key. We don't have to shun tech, but we should remember to look up from our screens, right? Breathe in the actual air, not just the cloud storage.
Right? Yeah. Expanding on that, it's like these hotspots popping up in the wild are blessings and curses. Naturally, they make life easier for a roamer needing to touch base with reality or Instagram. But there's a flip side. Culture clashes can bubble up. Take locals who maybe aren't so keen on this wave of tech-thirsty travelers invading quiet corners. It shifts something fundamental. Some places start catering more to outsiders than their own roots. And like that question about enrichment versus distraction, it's a tough call. Because sure, you snap a selfie in an ancient temple because Wi-Fi is handy, but does the pic show you felt the awe or just wanted likes? Maybe we've got to learn when to pocket our phones. Not for forever, just long enough to like really hit refresh on the human experience. Balance, right? That sweet spot where travel's still an escape, not just a relocated coffee shop. We get that down, and it's all good vibes and authentic memories. What do you think, buddy?
You ever wonder if our ancestors would laugh or just be plain confused watching someone climb a mountain, not for the sunrise, but for the signal bars?
Joe, that's a hoot, really. Picture this. Some ancient warrior or medicine woman watching these folks scrambling up a rocky slope, eyes glued to their tiny screens. They're probably like, did the meaning of peak experience get lost in translation somewhere? Gets you thinking. We're out there chasing bars more than sunrises. What kind of adventure is that? Like, I'm all for staying connected, but imagine hiking Everest for your Snapchat streak. A little, counterintuitive, don't you think? But hey, maybe it's just evolution, right? Our ancestors chased mammoths. We chase Wi-Fi signals. Both are about survival, sort of. Except one feeds the belly, the other feeds, the ego. Let's lighten up on the data diet and remember why we climbed the mountain in the first place. To see the darn view, not to update our status. So folks, keep searching for those peaks, but make sure you enjoy the view while you're at it. And hey, if you find an incredible hotspot up there, send us a postcard, will ya?
Yeah, that's quite the mental picture, Simon. So, what are we saying here that there's a sort of nostalgia for like unplugging and doing things how they were done in the good old days? I mean, sure, modernity's great, tech's amazing, but don't you think sometimes it's about more than just gram-worthy peaks? Like when we reach the top, Simon, isn't it the moment we're after, not just the bars on our phone?
Yeah, Joe. It's like we're kind of forgetting what getting away really means, huh? Those old school vibes, unplugging, just being in the now, they're golden. I'm not saying we toss our gadgets off the mountaintop, but like maybe put them on silent for a minute or two. The thing is, when our ancestors set out to discover uncharted spots, the experience was the reward, yeah? We've got all the tech flair, but are we missing out on the essence of discovery? Like, take that Wi-Fi in the cave with glowworms. You're there in this almost alien galaxy-looking place. But if you're staring at your phone, it's like you're anywhere but there. So, it's kind of essential we balance things out. Let the weird and wonderful spots do their magic without slapping an internet band-aid on it. Our listeners who brave these journeys, they got to ask themselves, am I here for the bars or am I here for the breathtaking view? You get me, right?
Then there's the irony, Simon. Sometimes in seeking connection, we could be severing the very human connections right next to us.
Yeah, the irony's thick enough to cut with a knife, Joe. It's like, we're up in these crazy beautiful spots hunting for Wi-Fi hotspots, and the real hotspot might be the, guy or gal sitting next to us. What a plot twist, right? We got this golden chance to connect IRL with folks from all corners of the world, sharing stories that no bandwidth could ever carry. And instead, we're zoned into our devices? Kind of sad when you think about it. So maybe we should stick a pin in those habitual checks for new likes or endless scrolls through selfies. Take a breather, even just a quick one, to like actually see someone, hear them out. Exchange more than just data, but real deal laughter and tales. It's wild. We travel miles to connect to the net, but often forget to connect to the moment or the people. So yeah, time for a change up, don't you think?
Right you are, Simon. We're so wired in that we risk missing the human element, like you said. Take it from me, anyone can scroll through photos, but those unscripted moments, they're on another level. Remember that truck stop diner with internet across the Sahara? You'd think heat mirages were the only thing you'd find, but nope, there's email too. Here's the pushback though. Isn't it a bit, elitist to say don't use tech? While we sit here with mics and lights in a high-tech studio, we love the convenience when it suits us. But I guess what I'm getting at is intentionality. Use tech when it adds value, not as a crutch. When you hit those wild places with Wi-Fi, pause, take in the sight, talk to the locals, veg out without a screen for once, make those rare spots about the rarity of being there, not just being online. Catch my drift?
For sure, Joe. It's like a walk the walk kind of deal. We got our tech perks, but knowing when to unplug is key, even for us podcasters. That diner in the Sahara? A reminder that even the most unlikely spots can keep you connected. So the real question we leave you with, we're all nomads on this digital highway, searching for signs of Wi-Fi like water in the desert. But what do these oases of connectivity mean for the spirit of travel? Are they the mirage or the real deal? Guess that's enough food for thought till next time, huh? Stay tuned, folks, and shoot us your tales from beyond the grid. Where have you found your most unexpected hotspot?
On that note, Simon, why don't we pivot to those nomad memes? You've seen them. The ones where signal bars are rarer than unicorns. There's kind of this shared comic misery in seeing someone climb a tree for a text or do the Wi-Fi dance at the cafe for just one more bar. Hang tight, folks. We're diving into some bizarre tech tales right after this break.
Ah, yeah, man. Know what's wild? That whole climbing a tree bit is like becoming a modern ritual. Saw this meme of a dude hanging from a branch just to send an LOL. Bears do it for honey, we do it for emojis. What a world, huh? Life's got us evolving backwards. Next thing you know, you'll catch me outside, flapping my arms trying to catch a signal like it's a frisbee or something. Stay weird, technology, keeping it real. Real goofy.
Yeah. Grabbing signal out in the wild is like a full contact sport sometimes. You've got folks practically turning into acrobats just for a sliver of connection, right? Saw this book with a whole chapter on the art of Wi-Fi yoga. No joke. It's about finding that sweet spot where your body bends just so, and boom, you have liftoff. I'm talking full-on downward dog next to an ancient relic just to check in for your flight. Listeners, shoot us your zaniest tales of connectivity yoga or signal safari. We want to know how far you've stretched for that text, literally. And imagine losing connection during a job interview. Yes, I'm very Oof. Savage. Keep those memes coming.
Joe, you're nailing it. Wi-Fi yoga? That's like a legit workout for some of us, the stretch for the text. And who hasn't done the hotspot hop? Just when you think you've got bars, they bail on you, like a bad date. Talk about a relationship that needs couples therapy, right? So, picture this. You're on a Zoom call in your remote cabin. The signal's flickering like a shy firefly, and just as you're about to close the big deal, you freeze mid-smile. Not cool, internet gods. Not cool. And hey, listeners, ever done the panic pocket pat when you hit a dead zone? Like checking if your phone's still there is gonna summon the 4G fairy or something. Give us the scoop on your most epic fail trying to catch those elusive bars. Keep the stories coming, because nothing bonds us quite like shared tech trauma, am I right?
Absolutely, Simon. It's a weird world where missing bars hit harder than missing car keys, huh? Everyone's got that tale of tech gone rogue. Wi-Fi limbo, how low can you go to get signal? We're laughing, but deep down we're crying just a little on the inside, aren't we? Keep those stories and escapades coming. We'll revisit the digital nomad's wild ride next time. What's your funniest no-signal saga? Stay curious and stay connected if you can.
Haha, speaking of signal sagas, Joe, it kind of loops us into this other thing, wanderlust in the wire-filled wilderness. This digital nomad life is a trip, but you gotta wonder, are we trading real talk for data talk? Way back when, those globetrotters had to be jazzed just to get a postcard off, and now we're bummed if a message takes more than 2 ticks to deliver. It's like the art of the lonely road got lost somewhere down the line. So what's the deal? Are we losing that human spark by staying so wired in? Let me toss out there, like, how do we keep that human touch alive without getting tangled up in the tech? Chew on that for a sec.
Well, Simon, you've got a point there. Historical travelers were all about soaking in the solitude, right? The whole journey was geared towards reflection, conversation, at taverns, over campfires. It's like we've dropped that script. But here's some food for thought. Maybe it ain't all bleak. Sure, we might stare at screens a bit too much, but there's this silver lining. Global friendships form in chats. We share routes and tips in an instant. Yet, when it eclipses face-to-face encounters, are we just wanderers in Wi-Fi wilderness? So it's got to be about balance, finding that sweet spot between online existence and the people you meet on the road. I mean, how do you strike that mix while trotting the globe? Keeping it real in a digital world, it ain't easy, Simon, is it? Let's not lose touch with those around us, 'cause what's travel without the new faces and stories, huh?
I'll try to hit that balance like a dude on a unicycle in a hurricane, Joe. You're out there trying to keep all steady, but every once in a while a gust of Wi-Fi knocks you right into a seen message. And you're just lying there in the digital dirt, looking up at the cloud, not the iCloud, thinking, man, I used to climb trees, now I'm climbing firewalls for friendship. Life's wild. Stay charged, stay grounded, and don't forget to laugh when you tip over, folks.
So for those just tuning in, we've been wrestling with this wild idea of how human connection's faring in the era of the digital nomad. We're all hooked to our devices, right? But it's about not forgetting the real interactions, the laughs, the stories you can't get through a screen. We dove into how, back in the day, travel was all about the personal journey, solitude, conversation. And now it's like Wi-Fi is the new compass, guiding us, but sometimes leading us astray from human touch. The trick is finding that sweet spot, that balance between being connected online and actually connecting with people you meet along your path. Stay grounded even if you're chasing that signal. It's about laughing at the missteps while keeping one foot in reality. Stay charged, sure, but don't forget to look up, way up, from your phones every once in a while, huh? Keep it light, keep it real.
Oh, and just imagine the twist, Joe. What if one day we find, an alien Wi-Fi network? Do we swipe right on intergalactic friendship or just stick to cat memes? Always a new frontier, eh?
Now that's a rabbit hole, Simon. Aliens, huh? Well, if we stumbled across ET's hotspot, I'd say, why not both? Imagine blending interstellar insights with an endless stream of cat-leaping fails. It's like dipping fries in ice cream. Weirdly awesome. But really, this digs into the bigger picture, right? Are we willing to widen our circle to infinity? Shows our drive to connect is still kicking, even if it takes us out of this world. And let's be real, human connection isn't going anywhere. It's just getting an upgrade or an extraterrestrial boost, maybe? So back to the digital nomad grind. While we're all jazzed up on wanderlust wires, let's stay open, whether it's to the person sitting next to us or some alien on a distant planet pinging us a hello. Remember, folks, keep your tech close, but your experiences closer. Am I right?
Totally. Like blending galactic gossip with our Earthling shenanigans. Now there's a combo meal for you. But you gotta wonder, Joe, when you're jet setting from time zone to time zone, how do you keep the old human spirit charged up? So really, what's your secret, man? How do you not let those virtual vibes totally zap the life juice out of meaningful, in the flesh chinwags?
Well, Simon, staying authentically human in a tech-saturated world, it's like juggling, man. My trick? Deliberate disconnection, choosing moments to go off-grid, recharge the soul with real-world experiences. You gotta leave space for spontaneity, right? So I encourage all you nomads out there, find your way to keep that human element thriving amid the tech static. Keep those pockets of genuine encounters alive. So what do you guys think? How do you balance digital life with keeping it real? Keep that conversation going. It's one we need to have. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to send us your thoughts, folks.
You know, this talk about staying grounded sparks up another tangent. How nomads around the globe juggle all that hopping through time just to stay on top of work. It's like they've got their own secret sauce for squeezing out every drop of that 24-hour productivity juice while still double dutching across time zones. Uh, it's not just willpower, it's science. Messing with your body's clock to get in tune with peak focus times and nailing it. Heard about these hotshot wanderers who've cracked the code? They're living proof that you can dance across the globe's clock and still hit those targets dead on. So what's their magic spell? Let's dish on those deets after we hear from our sponsors.
All right, Simon, let's dig into the nomadic 9 to 5, or should I say, round-the-clock grind. Now here's some spice for the pot, the concept of polyphasic sleep. It's when you break up shoot-eye into chunks to align with work bursts, and supposedly it unleashes mad productivity. Also, folks might not realize how much tech tools factor in. Time tracking apps, collaboration software, they're like the Swiss Army knife for the digital nomad. Some even live by chronotypes, to schedule tasks when their brain power's pumping at full throttle. Another tidbit, you've got those remote warriors using blue light blockers at night. Science says that helps keep circadian rhythms from throwing a fit. Gotta have all pistons firing for clients or colleagues across the pond, right? These pioneers are redefining what balance means in a workday that never really switches off. They're not just surviving, they're thriving by tailoring their lifestyles around the clock, not against it. It's a powerhouse blend of biology, technology, and, yeah, sheer willpower. There's some method behind the madness, wouldn't you say?
Oh, and let me toss this into the mix. Some say if Shakespeare had Zoom and an espresso machine, he'd be churning out masterpieces non-stop. No time for writer's block when you're on Tokyo time in London, am I right?
On Shakespeare and his hypothetical espresso-fueled writing binges. True that, Simon. So let me add some layers here. Just like old Will needed his quill in top shape, modern nomads need their tools sharp. It's why mindset is just as critical as tech. But it's not all about squeezing out work. Balance is key, right? Maybe throw a quick workout or meditation into the mix. Keeping your brain and body prime. It's like tuning an instrument before a gig, ensuring you deliver those high notes when it counts. Some extra nuggets to chew on. Successful nomads swear by them, Pomodoro technique, or breaking work into focused intervals with short breathers. They say it keeps the machine well-oiled. And let's not forget about nourishment. Brain food isn't just a saying, you gotta fuel up smart. Whole grains, nuts, fruits, midday keep the mental cogs turning without hitting that carb crash. So there's a smorgasbord of strategies for staying productive, whether you're living La Vida Loca across time zones or grounded with local roots. It's like crafting your personal symphony of output, you know? And if anyone can relate to that kind of harmony, it's our digital drifters. Activity created System 5.
Oh man, Joe. I just pictured a dude in Bali downing avocado toast while coding with one hand and holding a yoga pose with the other. Now that's some next-level productivity wizardry.
That image, Simon, classic. But let's drill down on the how, right? So these masterminds, they don't just slapdash tasks willy-nilly. It's scientific, a whole rhythm to when they dive into deep work or ebb into low-effort stuff. Like they tap into natural energy peaks, mid-morning for heavy lifting, like strategy planning, and slide into creative endeavors when the sun dips. Inhales, then there's the biggie, sleep. It's non-negotiable. They might snooze less hours total, but it's quality over quantity. Power naps are huge. Let's not overlook their environments. A change of scenery, it can jolt the brain, some cafe ambiance for writing, quiet nooks for number crunching. So yeah, it's a full package deal. Tailor your tools, train your body, pick the brains of those who've blazed the trail. Combine all this, and you've got yourself a formula for not just surviving, but thriving in the nomad hustle. Heavy stuff, right? What's next on the hit parade for our wandering workforce?
Oh, what if one day we're zipping through jobs in virtual reality? Your morning meetings on Mars and your lunch breaks under the sea.
Now you're talking sci-fi, but it ain't that far-fetched. Yeah, virtual reality could totally flip the script on remote work. Meetings on Mars sounds fun, but let's ground this a bit. So VR boosts immersion, right? Makes training or design more hands-on, but exhales. Would it actually amp up productivity, or would we just get lost in those cosmic lunch breaks? Gotta weigh in on potential, like distractions stripped away when your cubicle's on a calm beach setup in VR. Yet it's vital to remember our flesh and blood needs. Zoom fatigue is real, and slapping on goggles won't fix that unless we're careful. So while virtual worlds can make leaps in how we interact, let's not forget the basics. Sunlight's still good for you, so stretching your legs without a headset. Like, keep it balanced between digital dazzle and our human essence. You don't want to get sucked too deep into the matrix. What say you all? Ready to clock in with some VR wizardry, or keeping it old school? Inhales. Let's circle back after the break, and hey, shoot us your thoughts on this brave new work world.
You know, Joe, I get the pull of VR. It's like candy for the brain. But what about overload? We're already screen zombies half the time. So imagine you're 9 to 5 in virtual space, then clocking out to stare at more screens? Gotta pause and ask, where's real life in that? But like, productivity's a beast with many heads. Some bet on tech to tame it, others swear by nature and unplugging. Sure, skip the commute with virtual meetings, but also don't forget lungfuls of fresh air. You need to mix up those pixels with some palpable experiences. So tapping into circadian rhythms, is tech helping us, or is it just clicking snooze on our own internal alarms? Let's unpack this after spotting what our listeners think. Bring on those voice memos. And hang tight, folks, because we're just getting warmed up.
Man, Simon, you've hit the nail on the head. Our brains didn't evolve by staring at screens all day. They're wired for the real world, moving, interacting with real stuff, not just pixels and avatars. And let's face it, VR's cool, but you can't live in there. The danger is losing touch with what keeps us human. Physical connection, nature, that kind of primal jazz. It's about balance, man. Too much screen time, it's like eating junk food for the brain, gives you that mental fog. So, for those trying to hack productivity, don't forget the fundamentals that got us here. Exercise, sunlight, and yeah, unplugging. Because if you're burnt out, it doesn't matter how many virtual worlds you've got at your fingertips. You're going to feel like crap. Remember, folks, tech is a tool, not a replacement for living. Stay grounded, even as we explore these wild new frontiers.
Imagine trying to meditate in VR and accidentally downloading a virus. Suddenly, you're not Zen. You're in the middle of a digital zombie apocalypse. Balance, for sure.
Ha! That's rich, man. VR meditation sounds legit until Skynet takes over your peaceful meadow. Laughs. Reality check, guys. You don't need fancy gadgets to find inner peace. Stay vigilant. There's plenty of real-world chaos without digital zombies chasing you in your mind palace. Exercise that mental discipline the old-fashioned way, technology-free, and keep those brains zombie-free too.
Alas, dear listeners, our time's up, but don't you worry, because we'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern. Throw us a bone by tuning in again for more juicy convos. Stick around, folks. Keep those dials locked. Can't wait to catch you all next time. Stay awesome.